think it's actually important that we die.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Death clarifies what the meaning of life is. Knowing that I'm going to die, which is the only given I have. I don't know what's going to happen in the country, with my career, anything. I can pretend to know, but I have no idea. But the one absolute truth I know is eventually I'm going to die. How do I want to be when I'm on my deathbed?
This contemplation of death, the contemplation of life, all it does to me is make me talk to people differently in a better way. It makes me live a certain way that without that reflection, I don't think I'd be able to do it.
Death, ironically, reminds us that we're alive in a society of the walking dead where people all walk around pretending to be alive, but they're actually playing dead.
God, I feel like you're about to levitate right now. Thank you for being here. I guess we'll just hit the ground running. I watched your special, by the way, the biology. It was very well done.
Thank you.
And it made me even more excited to speak with you because I found out about you before I watched the special. And there's a lot of different things I'm sure we're going to get into and wherever you want to go. But one of the many things that stood out was you said something along the lines of being happy and sad at the same time. And for me, that hits powerfully because I think that's the balancing act of this life, especially when it comes to death as a whole. And the part, I don't want to spoiler alerts to the special or whatnot, but the way you were able to orchestrate your comedy act and then hit people with the poetry and this deep-hearted shit that is emotional, and then the hard cuts right back to the comedy. To me, besides the fact that it's brilliant, I want to give you your flowers for that, but it's just so significant of the way I think we navigate life, let alone grief. Was that intentional?
Yeah. I keep on trying to prepare for death. I keep on trying to plan for grief. And then it happens, and it's like the first time every fucking time. And it's so destabilizing because each time there's an invitation there to undo who you thought that you were. And then you just have to pivot. You now have to say, I am someone who no longer has a best friend. I am someone who no longer has an aunt or an uncle. And your entire self-concept is completely shifted. And yet the world is perceiving you as if you're that old person. But you're like, no, it's like I'm missing something integral to me. And so the whiplash of having to pivot from the realm of truth, which is, I think, what the realm of grief is, to the realm of whatever that is, which is, I think, repression maybe is a synonym for it, feels like whiplash. And so what I wanted to do in my show was to perform that of happy-go-lucky, so chill, so fine, and then there's death. And I knew that in a culture that is allergic to talking about death, having two poems that are explicitly about death, people would be like, womp womp. So the sort of theory in the show was, if I could establish connection and rapport with comedy and humor, then could we create a space where we could actually talk about the truth, which is death.
And you do it remarkably. It felt, again, I know I already said it, but it flowed like life. And the ups and downs, the approach where I've always viewed comedy as, a life as dark comedy in many ways. And I know you explicitly say something along the lines, so I found a lot of relatability into the viewpoint of it. But I always found humor in particular it could be like a defense mechanism, sure, maybe at least to start or anything like that. But now I've realized, 20-something years after losing my dad and plenty of people along the way, that it's not a defense mechanism. It's strictly healthy coping for me, even though it might not seem like it to the other person that finds it a little more oomph. But it's become something that I think dilutes the severity that we feel life and makes it more tolerable in many ways. And again, I feel like just the way you discuss it and approach it allows people to take the guard down, or the armor, if you will, and discuss it. Because I feel like not that discussing is the answer, but it helps.
So it's no secret that a lot of comics struggle with depression and have had a lot of pain in their lives. But one of the issues I see in comedy is that often people are joking about things prematurely. They've not done the first step, which is feeling the thing, sitting in that difficult, onerous, thorny, contradictory kind of anarchy of walking around being a question mark. When people are like, how are you? You're like, in order for me to answer that question, I would have to exist. I'm not sure if I do yet. So.
I'm not sure either, to be honest. Give it a few minutes.
And so you have to feel that But then I think the next piece that often is missing, not just from comedians, but from the world writ large, is the transition from yoke to joke, the thing that's strangling you to releasing it. I believe that comedy is an integral part of the healing from grief process. It's actually necessary because what it does is it's a detoxification where it takes the painful things and it doesn't allow them to stay in your body, and it puts them back into the ether to allow you to be unbridled and free in the face of the next tragedy.
That's the thing, in the face of the next tragedy it's going to happen in many ways, whatever that many ways may be, even if it's not death. It's that realization that, it's pinging what you just said earlier about it feels as if it's new every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think about that in regards to when this does happen again, when it has happened again throughout my life. It doesn't, just because I have this arsenal and these lessons and whatnot, it helps. It definitely helps.
I mean, I feel, I can imagine it's quite funny, like having a podcast about death. A lot of people must think like, whoa, you must be so ready.
Yeah. No. I get that all to be like the death guy. They ask me these questions. I mean, they come, more people come to me now for sure.
Yeah.
And I have to, it's like a legal disclosure at this point. I'm like, listen, I talk about death.
Yeah.
I only know so much. These aren't the answers. It's my perspective.
But it's also just awkward. Like if you were to lose someone, I'm sure that now people would be like, you've got this under control.
Yeah, don't worry about it, David.
Yeah. You've been doing this.
Yeah, no, it happened. I've talked about it a bunch of times in the podcast, but my mom, we almost lost her not too long ago, and she's fine now. But it was brutal.
Yeah.
The pain, it was visceral. But now with these steps, I understand. I think what you're saying is that yoke aspect, you have to allow yourself to feel it. And I'll crack jokes even during the yolk process before I cook the eggs. But at the same time, it is a processing. It is a feeling. And I think it's when we don't acknowledge those feelings, for whatever reason, I think humans tend to, or maybe it's our culture over here in the West, it's just, it's like we're told not to feel.
I think it's a culture. Like, I think it gets dangerous when we blame individuals for not being able to feel grief. Like, of course, where are they supposed to go? There are no Poke centers in the U.S. I knew I'd make it about Poke.
Yeah, everybody brought it back. Nice.
There's no Poke centers in the U.S. There's no place where you can just literally get paid to chill and feel your feelings. And so, of course, people have to go to work. They have to be there for their kids. They have to make a meal. And they have to play pretend. And I think that there's a reason for that. That was a choice. It's not incidental. That's a choice. Because if people were to truly feel the fullest extent of their grief, they would feel connected to one another. Because in my experience, grief has been a baptism. Every time I cry, when I lose, I feel the truth, which is everybody else is experiencing this. You're so clued into the fact that even just the person, the pharmacist you spoke to, who's kind of gruff with you, they could have just lost someone, or they could be about to lose someone, and then you have no choice but to love them because you're like, we're going through the same thing. And so I believe grief is political because we exist in a culture that denies us the opportunity and spaces to feel it. Because if we were to feel it, we'd feel interconnected. And if we were to feel interconnected, we wouldn't get away with people saying, oh, it's okay if we deport those people. It's okay if we torture or maim those people, because those people become our people too.
I mean, that's fascinating because, again, if you talk about that aspect of the world, the whole key is divisiveness, as divisive as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird part about death, or not the weird part, the natural part about death, and I know you allude to it, is it's the one common bond we all, it's literally, I try to think of other ones, you can kind of, but then there's always exceptions. This is the one without exception that we all share. And with that, it literally should bond us. And I found it so profound when you said those words in regards to death, how it can offer an opportunity for people to become more empathetic because we realize that we're in this together. And was this a realization that you made through your own experience specifically with death, or just going through life?
I think both. The first major person in my life I lost was my grandmother. I was so young and naive, and I was on tour in Italy, and I got the call, and I was like, what are you supposed to do? Like, am I supposed to cancel work? Am I supposed to be there? There's no, I think I Googled it. Like, we knew that she was going to die. She was older. It wasn't sudden. And then I just felt so clumsy in it. I didn't know how to speak about it. I was on the road, so people would be like, are you doing okay? And I'd be like, No, kind of. I'm not sure. And then I decided to cancel everything and fly back to Texas where she was. And that process for me was the loss of so much innocence because I realized I had been functioning even with I thought had this awareness that people died, but to have to like, contend with a cadaver, to look at a dead body of someone who you'd just been on the phone with, and to have to encounter the reality that you could never call that person again, because she was the person who I called whenever I was bored, when I was walking down a street, when I was just on a long road trip. Like she was always there, like a Sonos like speaker in my life, and I could just talk about anything. There didn't have to be a conversation. I could just literally be like, "Today I ate peas," and she would be riveted by that. Like I had a witness to every boring thought, and that was just all of a sudden gone. And what I realized when I was looking at her body is I was looking at a piece of me. And I realized I'd been lied to by anatomy classes that taught me that a body was one individual because there was a connection between us that was part of me. And I felt angry because I was like, there's this connective tissue that feels more real than this, and it's gone. And everybody's going to be like, oh, someone else died, but something else died between us. And I felt so confused and alarmed, and I didn't have language for it at the time. And then I started to speak about it, that murkiness, that confusion, that guilt, that sense of maybe I should have spent more time with her, that sense of why did I take advantage for the fact that she would always be there. And then other people began to share that murkiness and that guilt and that confusion. And that's where I realized people who I thought I had nothing in common with on the surface, when we started to speak about those things, we had so much in common. And people who I thought never had anything to teach me had so much to teach me. Like just like random dude bros would have so much insight on like how to feel that thing. And it felt like I joined some secret society, which is confusing because it's technically the entire world. Like,
Literally, yeah.
but yet membership feels like so fraught and hard. And then I felt so grateful for it on the other side. I felt like, wow, I've got this kind of Boy Scout badge, or in my case, like Boy Girl Scout badge that I can use to like alert to other people, I'm someone you can talk to about death.
Mhm.
And then when you find those people, it's really the opposite of small talk. It's the conversations we've been needing to have our entire lives.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it's a commonality, yet within that commonality, it's still so different, but you can still find the overall commonality because we have no idea what the hell's going on in many
Yeah.
ways. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
they always say grief is so individual, and it truly is in so many ways. Even though I think there's we try to generalize it with certain emotions. Sure, you can label off those, but there's just too many variables for any situation to be the same. And I've learned over the hundreds of episodes that I've had, I can talk to 1,000 people that lost their dad or 1,000 people that lost their grandmother, and every story will be so eclectic in nature.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to me when you really look at it that it's the commonality, but the differences, and that combination of commonality and differences is a beautiful array of, what's a good word I can throw in there to make this
I
sound
think
really
it's
profound?
humanity.
Yeah,
I think
agree.
it's the closest definition to humanity.
It's so true. And that's why I love what you said about that. Like there's the empathy, and it's just so much comes like why are we, and again, I'm paraphrasing what you said because I just love it. It's just, we're just focused on bullshit. Like
Such bullshit.
literal, I mean, hopefully not literal bullshit, but you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
bullshit when you all just sit back, think about your own mortality. It's a big premise of the show. And people
Yeah.
think it's, whenever I tell people, hey, like, what do you do? Like, oh, I talk about death. They're like,
Yeah.
ugh. I'm like, that's why I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
That reaction
Yeah.
is why I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
Yet others, when my friend comes in and says he does true crime, they're fascinated. So I'm like, what is going on with humanity?
Mhm.
That's more fascinating than contemplating our own mortality.
Mhm.
Like, what is that?
Like, I want to get us to a place where we have classes that we all take in school that are about death.
Sign me up.
I want us to get to a place where we learn about different rituals that people have about death and grief all across the world, because there's so much knowledge on this earth available to us. And I felt lied to. I felt like it was really difficult whenever I've had many deaths since, but I'm trying to, just for the purpose of this one, choose a death, you know?
It's like a Goosebumps novel.
Yeah, just like, I'm going to deal grandma. I'm going to deal. It's like poker over here.
Guys, who are we on right now?
I'm bringing myself back to 2017 when I had this kind of first rupture or loss. And I felt like I'm a very smart, competent person. I've learned so much in my life. I have all these fun degrees and I know nothing. It felt like that experience of being like, every single thing that I've done and prepared for has not taught me how to deal with this. And I think that's because what grief requires us to do is to surrender to unknowability.
Absolutely.
What mastery of knowledge and certification of expertise is about, like amassing credits, like knowing the world. Whereas with grief, the only path forward is to say, I don't know. I don't know if she's still here. I don't know what's happening on the other side. I don't know how long it's going to take for you to get better. I don't know what you're feeling right now. I can't understand it. And that realm of the unknown is, I actually think, the larger fear existentially of what people fear about death, is that it's the ultimate unknown that can't be conquered, that can't be assimilated into our pre-existent worldviews. And so what grief required me to do is to learn how to surrender and to actually be okay with that, with losing control, losing power, losing the fiction of power. And so that's why I think it's so spiritual, is it's because it's a trial by fire that's afforded to us every time. And I think the people who do it best are the people who ride a wave and are basically like, if this wave capsizes me, so be it.
I couldn't have said any better. I mean, it's the process of the unknown that's so scary. And I think that's why we latch on to ideologies, we latch on to things that are outside of us, because it gives us this, in my opinion, false sense of security, because I don't think anyone's safe. But you could also kind of find safety by surrendering to the unknown. So I think there is safety, and it is that letting go, because I'm not sure. I guess there's just this obsession about attempting to have control. And to me, the only control that I feel like we have is our inner world.
Yeah.
And whatever happens, happens. And at this point in my life, I still have a lot to learn. I have a lot more experiences I'm going to go through. But sometimes when life hits me, I'm like, all right, let's fucking go. And it becomes a balance of gentleness, compassion, but also like I guess a little bit of warrior's got to be in you. A little bit of warrior's got to be, if not a lot. And it's not in a violent way. It's in a necessary way of just fighting for yourself. But when you fight for yourself, I feel like you're ultimately fighting for the people around you.
Back to that idea around the fiction of control and certainty. We think that belief in a conviction and an ideology, let's say, I'll speak specifically about what I'm doing in that show, Biology, is the premise is, I believe that people hold on to transphobia and the idea that there's just two genders indisputably, and that these two genders are opposite and inherent and biological and cannot be changed. That narrative structure makes the world knowable. But it's only knowable because its fundamental truth is a lie. Whereas what I believe the only truth is that nothing is permanent and fixed. That's what death has taught me, is that this life, I feel like, oh yeah, I'm hot shit, I'm doing all these things. And then death, the ultimate stand-up comedian, is like, sorry, bitch. And then you're dead, you know? And so actually anything that postures itself as immortal, as permanent, is a lie. Because death, synonym truth, teaches us that everything is fleeting, everything is ephemeral. And maybe that ephemera is 98 years, but in the scheme of the world and the universe, that's still a blink. And so what I'm trying to establish in the show and my work more writ large is that actually the illusion of control gives a fake sense of safety because it's based off of a lie that things are permanent. Whereas my sense of security now has come from the realization that everything is impermanent. So death has been the most profound philosopher and teacher in my life, because now it's given me a degree of skepticism to any claim that is absolute, to any preacher saying to me, it is what it is. I'm like, no, because people die, things die, which means that nothing is here forever.
I didn't focus too much in school, for better or for worse, but there was one class, one part of my career, if you will, in school where I did really well. And it was a paper I had to write on the school of skepticism. And that's like the only thing that really stuck with me. Besides learning what I don't want to do, a whole nother rabbit hole. But I've always hung on to that because it wasn't that I didn't stand for anything, I didn't believe. I had my beliefs, but it was always like 99%. If there's something, besides morals and ethics and things I stand for, sure. But a lot of these ideologies, if you will, and beliefs about this, that, and the other, it was always like, I'm like, I may be 99% here, 70%, but it's always, it was never, I don't make it 100% because I don't know.
Exactly.
And you said with all your degrees and whatever you studied, yada, yada, it's the more I've learned, literally the less I know. And there's a reason why that's cliche. There's a reason why Bono's singing that at the top of his lungs. Like literally the more I found, I'm like, oh my God, I learned so much today and I now know so much, so much less.
Yeah.
And I believe in my mantra, it's just, I like living life like that because it gives me more room to learn more. It gives me more room to open up my mind to someone that I may not agree with initially, but let's listen because I don't know everything. And this assumption that we all know goes back to, again, the sense of false security that we need that to feel safe. But I feel like we can be safer when we let go.
Yes. I think the word that's coming up for me is awe. Like the cultivation of awe allows us to be like, whoa, there are things that I don't know. And I'm okay with that because there's actually a beauty and wonder and being able to witness something. You're like, I don't really have the framework for this. You know, I've recently encountered a lot of people who are trying to end death. There are people who are trying to develop technological innovations to prolong life and or, for example, maybe make death a thing of the past to give you that option. And I'm having a lot of conversations with them and I'm trying to really figure out like, what's going on here? And I never thought I would, it's kind of awkward, but I become like a death advocate because I'm like, I think it's actually important that we die.
Yes, I agree.
And because I actually think that death clarifies what the meaning of life is. And without death, we would have so much less clarity on what the meaning of life is. You know, Kafka says life has meaning because we die. And I believe that the only reason that there's a preciousness to any of this, and it's not just like some video game, whatever, that you know you can come back and come back and come back, is because we have that ultimate truth, which is that this ends. So now what I ask myself every day is knowing that I'm going to die, which is the only given I have. I don't know what's going to happen in the country, with my career, anything. I can pretend to know, but I have no idea. But the one absolute truth I know is eventually I'm going to die. How do I want to be when I'm on my deathbed? When I'm on my deathbed, my goal, my ultimate goal is to be laughing. My ultimate goal is that no matter what illness I have or what happened, I am there laughing my ass off because I'm like, I lived a really great life and I'm good. And so therefore, I don't want to have any regrets. I don't want to have felt like I didn't do something because I was afraid or moving out of nervousness or skittishness. And so in that way, death has become this compass that in every decision I'm making in my life, I can check in and be like, is this going to make me laugh when I'm dying? No. Okay, then I'm not really interested in it. And so in that way, death has deeply enriched my life and enriched my relationships and made me be so much more precious with people and present for people to really treat every single day as magnificent as it can be. And that's not to say that I don't slip up, but then I return to that practice of telling myself, okay, I have to be kind on this phone call because this person might die. I have to, when I'm back home with my family, not just be working on my computer the entire time, but like really go in, learn memories, learn recipes, learn histories, because this is not going to be here. And so it's in fact made my life so much more beautiful. And so I think on the other side of that accusation of it's so morbid that you're speaking about death is actually you're saying when you speak about death and when you in fact braid an awareness of death into your life is going to feel so much more rich and beautiful.
I couldn't agree more. I was consciously thinking while listening to what you just said about the response of death is morbid. I'm like, no, it could be the opposite. And that's the switch that I'm hoping to make. I'm not going to by these conversations in my small, tiny little way. It's like, no, it's not morbid. How is it morbid if it's natural? How is it morbid if we're all going that way? How is it morbid? I understand it's morbid because it's sad and it comes with real pain. But then, like, to me, I've just learned I don't want to go through pain. But at the same time, we need the pain. Just like you saying, we need death. We literally need the pain. And I don't have answers to why it's here. I have ideas and this or that. But this contemplation of death it's a contemplation of life.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that throughout these conversations, throughout my journey in this life. It's like all it does to me is make me talk to people differently in a better way. It makes me live a certain way that without that reflection, I don't think I'd be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I get why people are scared of it because, again, it's the unknown. But I think the more we face it and go through these experiences, it's only going to make us better.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends how you look at it. Because, I mean, you said we need death and it gives you meaning. It doesn't even matter because people might have like the deflection of religious beliefs and what happens, and that's divisive in nature. But that doesn't matter either, because if you're atheist, Catholic, Muslim, whatever it may be, you are still giving yourself meaning based on death. So like that aftermath stuff, like whatever you believe, that's cool with me. But I always find it interesting when people get a defensive on it because it doesn't align with their beliefs. And again, I always say this, I think if people that are getting pissed off because someone enforcing their beliefs down their throat in religion or any aspect, it's like, hey, do you truly believe what you believe hard enough? Because why are you getting defensive if someone's attacking that? And also, are you leaning into your beliefs as a security blanket as well? And when someone attacks your beliefs, now they're attacking you because you made your beliefs you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And listen, I have been by the bed of people with very strong convictions die. And what offers comfort and security at the end is not an idea. No. It's actually another human being. And that is another gift that being close to death has provided me, is that I see a lot of people keeping the company of convictions, creating a group chat with ideas. That's another synonym for loneliness, because at the end, no idea can touch you like someone who loves you saying it's going to be okay. That security that we're seeking in a political belief, in a political party, in an abstract concept is available to us now if we build close relationships with people we can be honest with. And the measure then of a good life is at the end, do we have people around us who, when all of us, all of the thousands of episodes that you've created preparing for death are going to not be relevant to you at the very end? What's going to be relevant to you is someone touching your hand and saying it's going to be okay. And so once again, that shifts our priorities. It really shifts our priorities to recognize that the true wealth is the intimacy that we have around us. Doesn't matter if you're dying in Gucci. Doesn't matter if you're wearing, your makeup looks amazing on your deathbed. Okay. What really matters is, do you have someone there who can hold you and be a steward when you just are unruly and falling apart? And, the poem in my show was about my grandfather. And that was one of the most surreal experiences of my life, to be going in and out of his hospice room for days and days and days. Because I would traffic between watching him not speak, just breathe. Just people were like, what are you doing this afternoon? Watching my dying grandfather breathe. How about you? What's up? And then you just like leave, and then you're like in the world where it's like la la la, and you're juxtaposing those images, right? And that's why that poem is called Dying is the Longest Verb, because I was so interested in how the world was like la 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 moving, and then there was this slowness where time was kind of suspended, and I'd be like, has it been multiple days? I don't really know. And I'd be going in and out of those places. And in some way, that's the only place I wanted to be. Like, people would be like, are you sure you don't want to like go bowling? Or I was like, no, I think I'm just going to sit there. And when I was sitting there, it wasn't like I need to work or I need to get things done. I was just kind of sitting there and reflecting on it. And what I realized I was doing is I was just being physically present. Being physically present is so much more powerful. I mean, I know AI, a lot of people are going to be like, girl, it's overrated. I don't believe that.
Absolutely not.
I'm a live artist. I tour for a reason. I'm in person for a reason. I think that is the most charitable, beautiful thing, because there's an awareness that's happening. that our bodies perceive each other. Because what the hospice nurses kept telling me is he can hear you. That's the last thing to go. That's the last thing to go. Even if he can't speak back, speak. So then I just started to speak about random things. I started to speak about memories of him when I was younger. I started to speak about what I did in my day. And then I felt this deep remorse of being like, why didn't I speak to you so much before? Like, it's kind of awkward that I'm telling you all these things now that you can't respond. Whoa, maybe
or
we'd have
better
this
in many
more,
ways, maybe,
you
who
know?
knows, yeah.
Totally. But I just felt like after experiencing that, I told myself, I am never going to live the same way again. I'm going to be physically present for people. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be the person. And then you get put back into a society where you forget that primordial truth. And I think that's why I'm saying it always feels like the first time. In the acute period after you lose someone, you have this clarity and awareness. And then you get distanced and distance and distance. And then you forget.
Mm-hmm.
You forget all of those realizations. And it takes another loss for you to ricochet back into them. And so what I'm trying to do now is to cultivate that presence, even when someone close to me isn't dying or just died. I want to have that presence tattooed in me so that I can always live from that awareness, because that emergency room mentality really shows you for what things are. It's like when I was reading testimonies of people fleeing the wildfires recently here in Southern California, they would all speak about this higher knowing of what are the things that I need to take when I leave. And they realize they look at so many of the structures around them like, oh, I don't actually need this. I need this. And that mentality is what I want to bring to my life. What do I actually need? What I actually need is intimacy and close connection and physical touch. And those things are the true luxury goods. All the rest of that is a distraction.
I mean, that's a great analogy, because I was even thinking about that when I left for a little bit. I mean, I bought a 96 Bronco a couple years ago because the truck my dad had. So that was the one material thing I didn't want to lose. Outside of that, I remember my mom was like, "Can you just come to Jersey, hang out with us?" Like, sure. I was like, "What do I need?" I was like, "I got my license. I can get on the plane. I got my wallet." I'm like, I'm going to go see my family. I'm good. Everything else is replaceable. As much as it might be a pain in the ass, it's like, it just shrinks. It shrinks your vision. Like whenever you experience death or anything traumatic, it just shrinks. It goes to tunnel vision. And it's interesting how you said that ricochet of when we get stuck back into life, we like forget these things. Like after I left the ICU, my mom and she got out of the hospital, I think me and my sisters were sitting there and we were back to quote unquote normal life. Like, what the hell just happened?
Right.
And now we're just back in our, I don't want to forget those lessons. I don't want to forget everything I just went through. And it's not a harping of trauma. It's a harping of, holy shit, this is real. But I was the most present I ever was during that experience. And maybe based on the 9/11 fiasco, my family, and then it all took us these years to learn to be present. But even when I was in the ICU, and maybe you can relate with the hospice, I was so present in that moment. It forced me to be present. And it's as easy as it sounds, it's not, because you're thinking of the what if she doesn't make it. I wasn't even there. I was just there next to my mom. And that's the way we should be living forever. It's that presence. And we get so distracted. And like, I'm big on Joe Dispenza, and he always talks about the coherency of the brain, because we're so focused on the future, we're so focused on the past, but the unknown is the present moment, because that's the only thing we don't know. It's like that's the true unknown. And it's like, how do we stay there? And I want people to realize that through stories like yours, maybe a little bit of the stories of mine and all my guests, about you don't have to go through that. Like I know you said, unfortunately, I think we do. But if people are just a little present to listen to other people's stories, no matter who they are, what they look like, this, that, and the other, you can learn these lessons, maybe not as bodily and as deep, but by listening to stories like yours, we can make this realization before going through the shit at the same time.
Like, what if we were to bring that caliber of presence into every encounter? That's the challenge I'm trying to bring to my life. Like, some of the most foundational experiences that have shaped me have been the people that I loved dying or talking about dying. I remember when my grandfather first told me, I want to die. He had just lost his wife of over 50 years. I can't even imagine what that feels like. He felt so like all of his friends were dead. Everything that he knew was gone. He was like, this is so annoying. I don't want to be here. And I remember being like, wow, I really want you to be here, but that's so cruel. Like, I'm just going to witness. And we were like, word,
Word.
There was just really no judgment there. I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And then watching him die, and then I was just like, oh, you are teaching me how to be present for extremely uncomfortable things, extremely confronting things, extremely destabilizing things. But I'm realizing my job is to just witness and to not judge and to be like, I can't even imagine what you're going through. And now I can take that practice of witnessing and bring it everywhere. And it shouldn't require death to do that. I actually think that like everyone in our life who's living deserves that now. A non-judgmental, open, warm embrace that's curious. And it's like, hey, what are you really feeling? Like, what are you actually going through? That's another way in which death has made me a better friend, a better lover, a better person, is because these experiences and proximities to death have allowed me to show up and actually be present and actually be there and understand that there's a difference between saying that you're there for someone and actually being there for someone, and realizing I can't be there for everyone. So who am I going to be there for? And the way that I started to shift as a performer is I began to really recognize, okay, I have a crowd in front of me. One view, I could just be like, these are strangers who are coming together in a crowd. The other, before I go on stage, every single show, I remind myself, every single one of these people is a soul who is potentially navigating extraordinary pain and suffering and has made the choice and established the trust to be there in that room with other people who they don't know, which is a vulnerable act these days. And I need to come on that stage and I need to really be present for these people. This is not just a performance. This is practice for being human together. And so I take it very seriously what I do, because my job is in so many ways being present for people. That's what you are as an artist, is you just show up in your body. And that's why I really don't think that any technology will ever be able to recreate that level of physical intimacy, because there's an intuitive knowing that our bodies have together. And so, yeah, I'm speaking and I'm throwing jokes and I'm making people laugh, but in so many ways, what I'm being is a mirror, what I'm being is a hug, what I'm being is a form of witness. And those are methods, performance methods, but human methods that I learned from dying and the curriculum of death.
And it all trickles down from death. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
But again, that act of presence is so, it's an exchange. It's an energy exchange that people realize. I mean, you ever just remember someone's name, remember someone you just met maybe months ago, you remember their name and their face light up?
Yeah.
That's a form of presence and acknowledgement. And sometimes just being present is like, oh, I see you, I'm listening. And that means the world more to some people than others, because they may not feel seen. And that presence, again, comes from the idea of impermanence.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think just holding that presence, I think is partially letting go of what I have to say in this moment, what do I have to do in this moment, because I think when you start contemplating that, it takes you out of the present moment, because you're contemplating shit that what you might say in a few seconds, when sometimes you just have to be there. Like that's literally, like, again, I'm a deaf guy. Sometimes some of my people, I'm like, David, what do I say? I'm like, I'm more just, I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder and I will say words, of course. I'm not just going to be a Charlie Chaplin weird grieving help hand right now.
Like you are now a mime death grief influencer.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like, I think we overcomplicate things, and we're overcomplicating it. We remove ourselves in the present moment. Just got to let go, like you said, say, I don't know, and just trust it. And sometimes just the presence is enough. And especially in a society like today where we're gearing towards this AI madness, which can be great, but can be terrible. It's that connectingness that we forget. And death is the best reminder for all that. And again, it trickles down to all these examples from your show to the way you act with people. It doesn't have to be a death situation. That's the beautiful, crazy part about this experience. And like that's why I hammer down, hey, but I'm talking about death, but it's so much more than that. Just listen once. It's so much more than that. And it has to be there for us. That's why it's there. You said it's important. It's sad, but sadness is part of it too. We have to be sad.
As you're speaking, I'm realizing when I was younger, I was kind of afraid of meeting new people, because at the back of my head, I kept thinking, these people are going to die one day. And so I was afraid that if I loved people, I would be hurt, because then I would lose that love over and over and over again. And now that I've actually lost people I've loved, and it's not a hypothetical, meaning it's not a fear, it's a manifest reality, I'm going to keep on loving even harder, because it's worth it. Every single time, the pain has been worth it. And pain and fear wear infinite masks. So in the moment, it'll be like, don't trust someone, don't let someone in, because then you're going to be hurt. But actually, it keeps happening. Like, people I love keep dying. I guess there was like a 2-for-1 special at the funeral home or something, because they're just like, we're gonna keep it going. And Indians, we really love a good deal, so they're like, we just gotta die and die and die, because then we're gonna get a benefit.
One's not enough. May as well make it two.
And so it just keeps on happening, and it's like womp 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 womp. And each time I have this thought of like, close off, because this is impossible. I can't do this. I can't, just when I feel like I got my shit together, now it's like, I can't do this. And then I sit with that thought, I love on that thought, and I do it anyways. And that's why I preach a gospel of death, because it's a gospel of love. Because when you integrate death into life, when you look at the face of death, the only path forward is love. The only path forward is love. And that love will give you the strength and the fortitude to keep bouncing back over and over and over again. And so another gift that death has given me, and then the loved ones I've lost, is it's unlocked in me a desire to love as many people as possible. As many people as possible. I wish that we had a society where we could just normalize going to people's funerals you didn't really know. And I just think that sometimes, like, the things that make me most sad in the world is that there's no one there at a funeral for someone, or that there's no one there in a hospital room for someone. Like, the fact that we've created a society where that's even a possibility is so messed up to me. And that's why I study so many death rituals, because in many cultures across the world, it didn't even require knowing someone. You realize that, like, there is a loss here, and you have to be there, and you have to be in awe and in presence of that loss in order for that spirit to feel settled. And I think we're haunted by millions of spirits who have never been witnessed on this earth and in this planet. And so I feel the need to preach love, to be around love, because love is the only life raft I've ever had that continues to rescue me when I'm drowning in grief. I feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been so close. Or I've been really feeling this with my parents now. I love my parents so much, and I'm so afraid of losing them. And especially as they get older, we'll be hanging out, and I'll just have this freak out in the corner where I'm like, I'm gonna really miss how annoying my mom is. My mom is so freaking annoying. She micromanages me so much, and it's so frustrating. And each time I want to clap back, but then I'm like crying in a corner, because I'm gonna be like, what, in 10 years and 20 years, I'm gonna miss this so much. And so I recently had a conversation with my mom where I said to her, I feel myself distancing myself from you because I'm afraid of losing you. And I feel like the thought of losing you is so overwhelming that I'm denying myself and robbing myself the experience of being near you right now, because I almost don't want to create more memories, because then I'm going to create more grief. And my mom is a badass, and she was just like, why would you rob yourself of this? While I'm here, let's take full advantage of this, and let me teach you the things that I have, so that when I'm gone, I'm still with you. And that was a gift. It could have been morbid to speak to your parents about dying, but now I'm really trying to do it. And I'm really trying to be like, what do you want to be? Like, what are your last days going to be like? What makes that feel good for you? Can we foreground this in our relationship? And I guess I get furious at that dismissal of these conversations as morbid, because they're actually the closest conversations I've had with the people I love.
Yeah, and that was just a beautiful, perfect example, because that contemplation made you realize what you have, but also it didn't. Some people could look at that as like, oh, I realize what I have. I'm just gonna let this situation go on because I have to be present. No. That realization allowed you to confront what it was. It wasn't just live on with whatever someone annoys you, this or that, and just, I have to be present, I'm going to let it happen. No, like, it forced you to confront it, to correct it in the way that you wanted to live the rest of the years even better. So it's, again, it all comes down from that conversation. And you keep going back to love. It was that popular quote. It says, grief is just love with nowhere to go. I don't agree with that. Back to what you were saying, I literally disagree with this online. I think I posted or some shit. But I was like, no, grief is not love with nowhere to go. If anything, the love is still there for the person I lost. And it's made me love so much harder. So it's not love with nowhere to go. I think it's just love with more places to go.
Yeah. I think love is grief. Grief is love.
Grief is love.
Yeah.
It's the price. And again, back to you saying, if I had to pick between allowing myself to feel this pain, it means it's the price of love, like I said. So if I didn't lost my dad and it hurt so much because I love so much, and then I want to shut myself off from future relationships because of that fear of loss, I'd rather feel the love and still experience the pain later.
You know, I had a conversation with someone the other day who said something to me I found so shocking. I was saying, I believe at the core, suffering is a part of human life and everyone is suffering. And whenever I'm feeling like, woe is me, like no one has this cross to bear, what soothes me is remembering that everyone is bearing a cross and I just might not know it. And she said, I don't believe everyone is suffering. She said, actually, I think there are people in the world who their biggest concern is if they should get an oval table or a circle table and they're not dealing with the things you're going through. And what I wanted to say, and you're helping me articulate it now, is I think that's evidence of the fact that they're suffering. If they are so numbed to feeling, that is a form of suffering. The absence of feeling grief is a form of suffering because our function as a species, as humans, the reason we have bodies is to feel. And if we've curated a life without friction, if we've curated a life where that's our number one concern, that's a form of absence, not luxury or privilege. And I believe feeling is ultimately one of the most precious experiences of being human. And if you've been cut off from that ability to feel, then you are suffering. So what mobilizes a lot of the work I do in the world is not a paradigm that says, I've been dealt these hard cards because of my identities and the experiences I've been going through. But actually, everybody is suffering. Everybody's suffering. And the reason that people harm me is because they're suffering and they don't want to sit with their own pain. So they will visit prejudice. They will visit all these tourist destinations, violence, racism, homophobia, and vacation there so they don't have to be at home with their own suffering. And when I remember that everyone is suffering, I actually remember I don't need to feel bad for myself. I don't need to feel like, oh my God, it's so hard in my life. What I need to feel is grateful that I am fluent and present and animal and alive. So once again, death, ironically, reminds us that we're alive in a society of the walking dead where people all walk around pretending to be alive, but they're actually playing dead.
God damn. I feel like you're about to levitate right now. I don't know if it's the outfit or your words or it's both. It's one or the other. But no, it's so true. And I think, there's always that comparison of what someone's going through. But at the same time, again, I don't know what you're feeling in there. I don't know what that feels like. And the idea of not knowing what that feels like, and I'm supposed to force an opinion on not knowing your own experience, it seems impossible to me. It's just kind of like, okay, you're going through something, you could explain it to me, I'll try to understand. But I think just understanding that, again, I don't know what you're feeling leaves wiggle room for the empathy that this person might be going through something. And like you said, everyone's going through something. And the hardest thing you've ever gone through is the hardest thing you've ever gone through. There's no hierarchy to that. Even though some on paper, yes, significantly worse. But if someone's never gone through anything, then this balloon that just popped is the worst thing that's ever happened to them. And it's just, it opens up a whole...
Not the balloon popping. That was funny.
Hey, sometimes I got good ones. Sometimes I rant on. It makes no sense, but this is an open forum podcast. So I don't know, man. It's just it comes down to these feeling. That's what I wanted to say. I was listening to Alan Watts on the way here. It just popped up on my Spotify, whatever, and he was talking about feeling, and he was like, "Yeah, people just." I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, "You should look at feeling as something beautiful, as the seasons that go by. It's just, it's going to be cold, it's going to be hot, it's going to be cool." And that's just the flow of life. And I think this is just a human experience that we think because something feels bad, we shouldn't feel it. And because something feels good, we should feel it. It's like, no, because something feels bad, we should feel that.
Right.
And because something feels good, we should feel that. And I think that is on a woo-woo scale of it. I think that's just the human experience. And yeah, we don't want to feel it. But part of the fun, as crazy as it may sound, is to get through the shit. And to get through the muck, because once you get through the muck, you clean your shoes off, you're standing on the other side of the pond, you're like, oh, I did that. And that's a good feeling in itself. It's like, I got through that. And whatever you are going through, it's just, I think it's a lot a bit more compassion, because I don't know what anyone's going through. I may see it on the news and I can form my opinion on a surface level newspaper article and say, oh yeah, that whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know that, just like they don't know me. And it's just a little bit more understanding. And sometimes someone's an asshole, you got to put them in their place and they learn their lesson, sure. So there's a little grit involved there, in my opinion. But at the same time, it's just like, guys, we're all going through this shit and we're all going to die. Let's just think about that a little bit more.
That was a great way to end this.
Yeah. How do you feel? You got a show in like 5 minutes, don't you?
Yeah. I feel actually what I'm going to tell my manager now is I think we need to have a structured conversation about death before every show on tour.
I love that.
Because then I'm really gonna be funny. Like, if we
Let me
just,
do 5 minutes sitting down with you. That's all I got.
yeah, like maybe I just like need to like just hire some death coach where it's just like 5 minutes for it. And people are like, "What is your pre-show ritual?" I just think about death.
Yeah, that's it. It fires you up. It all trickles down,
I gotta
baby.
go.
Yeah, people might think you're a little sick fuck, but that's okay. Whatever makes you funny. I really appreciate you taking the time to take time through your busy schedule. You came in here and said you look feeling like you're dead, but you didn't talk like you were dead. But I appreciate it. I know you have your special's been out for a little bit. I'll link everything in the bio. But if there's any plugs or any last minute things you want to say, Mike's yours.
Just that I love everyone, and I hope that you're okay. And I'm thinking about you.
Amen. Dead Talks. Until next time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.